Roxanne, thank you so much for being here. We've been excited to have you on as a guest.
Well, thank you for having me. I'm going to really enjoy this, I feel.
Yeah, let's dive right into it. First of all, let's give the audience an idea what got you into the recruiting space to start off with.
Yeah, well, I'm going to be the typical recruiter answer here where I say I kind of fell into it. My background in education is actually in healthcare. And so I spent many years doing that. And then I transitioned into facility services. And I did that for 3 years. And when I left facility services, I was interviewing with my current company for a role. And they were like, this isn't it for you. You need to be a recruiter. And I was like, well, I don't know. And I dove right in and I have been very successful at it and I love it. And I couldn't see myself doing anything else. So, typical answer, we kind of fall into these roles that we really thrive and love.
Yeah, I see that happen all the time across so many different industries, different positions. It's usually, I went to school for this and then I got this, and this is
Yeah.
where I'm at, but I love it, right? So, what types of candidates and clients do you typically work with, just so the audience has a good idea?
Yes, well, I recruit in the construction space. So, in particular, I'm a mission critical recruiter that specializes within data centers. And so, my typical candidates are the director level and above, and they can come from any sector of construction as long as it equates across the mission critical field. So, we're looking for, you know, MEP heavy, which is your mechanical, electrical, plumbing experience, and then other recruiter I'm sorry, other fields that are adjacent to the mission critical space. So healthcare, schools, things like that.
Gotcha. Gotcha. Okay. And so focusing on for this podcast for the candidates,
Mhm.
what is one thing you wish more executives understood about selling their story?
Yeah, so I think this is a pretty complex question, but with an easy answer. I think when they're selling their story, they need to focus on their resiliency over their accolades. Meaning, I see a lot of executives who talk about everything that they've achieved, but they're missing that resiliency piece, how they actually got there to achieve that in particular thing and the challenges that they overcome, and also how they brought their team along with them. I mean, part of being an executive is how you support your team.
Mhm.
And so, just really that piece, is that resiliency piece is always missing for me in a lot of areas. And I have to go back and help them revisit what that looks like and what it means and how to really articulate that.
Yeah, that that's a really unique answer. I
Mm.
appreciate you giving that answer. I haven't had that answer before on a
Oh, okay.
podcast. So
Yeah.
what well, that's just really good to know. I wasn't expecting that answer, to be completely honest. And I'm curious what are you seeing that be a common issue that a lot of people don't have that when they're going into that interview process? And should they be better said, should they lead an interview like that?
I
With that thought.
I I think so. I mean, if we look at lower level roles and how they interview and they're taught to do the STAR method, it's really about how you solved problems and overcame challenges. They're really looking for the piece about you that exudes those leadership abilities, and for those to come forward and shine in the forefront. And in my field, we're definitely very innovative, right? So there's problems and crisis abound. And I want to know how you solved that problem, because definitely in the data center space, we chase the most glittery new project that comes along, and that's where you want to work because you want that to be on your resume. Um, and so that's all good to say I worked on, these 5 projects, but what problems did you face there? How did you solve them? How did you overcome them? Because that's going to historically give us a perspective of how you can solve our problems and
Mhm.
challenges that we're going to face on the next project. 'Cause there's no data center that's alike. So it's all unique, and we've got to know the depth of problems you can solve. And within that is a lot of moving parts to include your team. So I really, really try to pull that resiliency piece out of people, and I'm surprised it's a unique answer because it's a very good one.
Yeah. Yeah. No, it's a great answer, and it's a different way of looking at it, which I really
Mhm.
enjoy. I got another question for you about interviews. What's the
Yeah.
most common mistake? Well, I guess I should preface this with this might be what we were just really talking about, right? But
hmm
just diving a little bit deeper. But when it comes to interviews, what's the most common mistake you see executives make?
Um, it's their confidence level. And I know some people are thinking maybe their confidence is too low, but I face the other part where it's too
Mhm.
high. They rely definitely too highly on their network and their brand sometimes, and they
Mhm.
don't actually answer the questions that are presented to them. So, for example, they'll say, well, oh, Bob and Joe, I worked with them. They know that I can do XYZ. Well, I don't know Bob and Joe, and I want to know what you worked on and how you solved it. And so it kind of prolongs the interview when I have to uh, dig in and get them to answer questions. So we have to move all the networking and all the branding that they may be doing and who knows who,
Mhm.
and get down to the brass tacks of the question and the project.
Yeah. Yeah. So really to kind of like exactly you said two things, right?
hmm
Confidence and actually answering the question. It
Yeah,
is so interesting how many times I have guests on this podcast saying, just answer the question, right?
yeah.
Don't lead it another direction. Don't give me an hour-long spiel. Answer the question. It's what we need. It's what we're looking for. Very, very interesting that that's such a common issue.
Yeah, in interview prep, that's one of the biggest things we talk about is the length of time it takes you to answer a question. If it takes you 6 minutes to answer one question, that's probably very wordy and you didn't answer it.
Yeah, great point. Great point. And when you're working with your clients, right, the employers, what kind of leadership skills are clients asking for in today's hiring market?
I would say a huge skill set challenge that we're facing is those interpersonal skills. And I kind of reframe that and I say it's your client facing abilities, right? Um, and so I work in a very technical realm where people are very analytical with very structured formulations of how they should be doing things, and that's how they work best. However, they also have to have that client facing mentality, lots of sales abilities, lots of emotional intelligence, and lots of active listening. Active listening is really a lacking skill these days.
Mhm.
People listen to answer and solve and move forward, but they aren't really uh, listening with intent to see what the next 5 steps may be, right? Um, so it's a lot of immediacy instead of expectancy.
Mm. And when you, just to make sure I'm understanding right, and the listeners are understanding, so when you're talking about client facing, so pretty much be a people person.
Yeah,
Understanding that right? Like just
yeah.
communicate with people, understand issues, and
hmm
don't just hit it on the head, but understand the person and the client and be able to
hmm
showcase that when you're interviewing and when you're
Yeah.
starting a new position.
Yeah, I mean, because in these director level and above roles, you're interacting with so many different people that you're representing your company's brand, right? And so my clients are definitely looking for those people that can represent their brand well, on the job site, in the office, with their team, with potential team members, with stakeholders, and definitely, with people who are funding the project. And so it's kind of a multifaceted way. And so I end up looking for a lot of people with sales in their background, even if
Mhm.
we have to go way back to, college or high school, where they've interacted with somebody, like say Starbucks or something like that, to say, hey, this person has innate abilities to be able to do this. Right. It may not have been a necessarily skill set requirement in a previous job, but they have the innate ability to do it and it's showcased here. Now, I wouldn't recommend that on anybody's resume. I would say that is just a more conversational piece when they're
Yeah.
saying, "Hey, do you have these interpersonal skills?" And usually a good recruiter will be like, "Well, want to know how you got started in your career, where you worked in college, and those things to learn about those resiliency factors, right? Like, how did you overcome the course load of college and support yourself in those things? Those all create a picture of who you are and your work style.
Mm.
And it's very valuable. to a client as well, to know those little bits and pieces about you and not just what you're currently doing. What is your overall ability?
Yeah. Yeah. I personally have seen that in my life and in a lot of close friends and family members when they get into sales. One of my first jobs out of college was sales. In college, what got me through it was sales.
Mhm.
And I see it happen to a lot of different people where once they start going into it, they realize like, wow, this actually is extremely helpful for me to understand people and be able to kind of listen of what's going on in a conversation and not just, I think a lot of people, they struggle. If you're not in sales, you don't have to be able to address the concern, right? You just
Yeah,
have to continue the words flowing from your mouth, right? And when you have to
right.
actually address those concerns, you can really relate to people a little bit more because you want to be able to understand what they're going through. So I
Yeah,
appreciate
people
that.
who
Yeah.
are in sales definitely that who are not in sales think that sales is just about convincing someone to buy a product or service, and that's not it. It's really the hardest part of sales is overcoming those objections, right?
Mhm.
And understanding what those objections may be even before they're presented to you just through conversation. And so, recruiters, we face objections all day. I'm sure on your side you face objections all day because you're being critical of someone and who they are and creating their brand to better them. And
Mhm.
that comes with a lot of objections, right? People are like, no, 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 that's not going to work, and you're like, yes, it's going to work. Just trust me.
Yeah.
And so I think it's one of the most invaluable skills that people can have. And when I'm talking to youth, I say enjoy those, entry level experiences that you're having in high school and college because they will set you up for success. It doesn't always have to be your desired career path or what your college path is, um, but you learn invaluable skills doing that for sure.
Yes, I agree. I don't even know if I could probably talk about this topic for a long time 'cause it's very relevant for both of our careers. I know that.
Yes.
And but it's always interesting to see that, it's relevant for a lot of people's careers, for most people. And so I hope people listening are getting a little bit of understanding. Well, that will be listening. This isn't live, but are getting a little bit of understanding of how that relates and how they can bring things up or showcase those things in an interview. I want to shift gears just a little bit.
Okay.
I get this just to kind of give you a little bit of understanding of what I'm going to ask. I get this question a lot when I'm talking to a candidate that has been at a company for 10 years. They've been at a company for 20 years. So when we're talking about that, if to kind of just to give you an idea here, this is the question, just a long-winded answer. Here's the actual question. So what's one piece of advice you would give a candidate that's starting to look that hasn't looked in over a decade?
Okay, so if they have been at the same company for 10 years, I have lots of questions for them. um, and not to question their loyalty. Like I think companies really appreciate loyalty in many spheres, but it also adds a bunch of questions, right? So, what skills did you actually grow and gain working at a company for 10 years? And I say this as a question because I'll preface this with the average tenure at a company right now is actually 2.7 years. And so people who, I don't want to say job hop because it's not technically job hopping, but go from company to company, but are advancing in title, they start learning invaluable skill sets. And that's why they're doing it, is because they're going to learn XYZ in that knowledge base or that technology or that program. My
Hmm.
fear when I face people who have worked at a company for that amount of time is, have you advanced in your skills? Have you learned new technology? Have you worked with a multifaceted team or the same team? What does that team look like? How is it comprised? What are the moving parts? And again, it comes back to those challenges and resiliency factors, right? Um, and so it leaves a lot of questions. Sometimes those questions are easily answered. I mean, we can just plug in companies and we can see that they're innovative and that's what they do. And so those would be naturally kind of answered through their resume. And some companies are, on the other hand, not as innovative. And so I would need to know what they're doing, A, in their personal life to gain those skills and overcome some of those challenges to be able to be work ready at another company that is requesting this of their abilities.
Hmm. I love hearing answers that I was hoping you would say.
Oh.
Because I no, there's no wrong answer there. But
Yeah.
what I love hearing is, really what is natural, what you'd expect, or what I would expect a recruiter to be looking for is if you've been at a company for 10 years, 20 years, 30 years, you want to see that you've been progressing. You haven't just been stagnant. You're
Mhm.
developing your skill sets,
Mhm.
you're growing, you're working with different teams, your abilities are changing. Because you're right. I mean, the tenure, 2.7 years. I mean, right? I
Mhm.
mean, 2 years ago, I went to a conference and that was the tenure of a typical CEO,
Yeah.
right? And so
Yeah.
when you're looking at leadership changing that fast and there's a lot of churn going on right now. A lot of people
Mhm.
are looking for better opportunities all the time. But right now I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, it's an employer market. And so it's really showcasing I've been at a company for 10 years, but this is exactly what's been going on. This is exactly the success I've seen. I've worked with these teams, I've developed, I've grown, and I have relevant skills for these
Mhm.
opportunities.
Yes, I am going to correct you because I do think
Yeah.
in my space you're wrong. It's not an employer's
Okay.
market. They like to think it is.
Okay. Yeah.
And if you read every article out there in construction, I'm going to talk construction broad, not just data centers, real quick.
Uh-huh.
Construction in a broad sense, I speak on this quite a bit. And there is not a labor shortage in construction. If we just pull a small pool of numbers and say, let's use LinkedIn data. Okay, so I wrote a case study on this of available LinkedIn data.
I love it.
And if we just pull 4 job titles from construction, um, those job titles alone with available talent on the market cover all the available jobs that are open and ready to hire. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
so those are the posted jobs. So if we apply that to a global scale, okay, there's definitely not a job shortage. Now we can nitpick and we can probably pull job titles out of there that say maybe there is a shortage in electricians, right? We could all surmise, sure, there is. But in that global view, there's not really a shortage. So I would say it's definitely still a candidates market. And then when we nail down more into my field, 8.7% of that talent from the construction talent has data center experience. And not all data centers require data center experience on the job, and they are definitely happy to develop that. Um, it's just all company dependent. But I would challenge that narrative
Yeah.
based on facts and numbers. But it's a hot topic. Companies like to say that, right? Because I would push back and say that it's an HR innovation challenge, especially when we have talent on the market right now. So if we have our trades in construction, they're on the market only for 10 days. Okay, and this is from market research. JLL put out a good study about how long talent is on the market. So trades 10 days,
Hmm.
executives in construction 45 days. So that's how quickly they're getting hired. So fill in all the job titles in between there and come up with an average, right?
Right.
Uh, the time to hire for companies is 90 days. So I would then pose this question are they getting the top talent? Or are they getting the talent that's interviewing in multiple markets at multiple companies and that are getting passed over? That would be my guess. And that's why my job is invaluable, is because I deal with top tier talent and I really push the envelope with companies that I work for and how are you going to be innovative? In data centers alone, it's people definitely are going after the new and cool project, right? They want to work on that. They want it on their resume. Um, and if your internal team can't be innovative and agile, you're going to be a cog in the machine and they're going to quickly see that and then go to the next company. So if you're wanting to retain the talent, you've got to then become agile and innovative yourself within your HR and administrative teams.
Yeah. Roxanne, thank you for telling me what you actually think.
Oh,
I love that because every industry is different. I
yeah.
love seeing it. You're on the ground, you know the numbers, you're doing the case
Hmm.
studies. I love that our listeners get to hear that. I
Yeah.
really genuinely do because I hear different things all the time. And what I'm seeing is always different. So based off the industry or
Mhm.
experience, that's great to know. Hey, there
Yeah.
are opportunities there. There's honestly 45 days to land a new position for a higher level director, higher
Hmm.
level executive is great. That
Hmm.
is
It is.
amazing, right? And so
Hmm.
I appreciate you giving that information. And I'm assuming that there's a lot of candidates and potential clients for you that are listening to this, and
Hmm.
they're interested in knowing, okay, how do I get a hold of Roxann? Where's the best way to reach you? So, how would you answer that?
Yeah, well, there's three ways you can get a hold of me. You can find me on LinkedIn at Roxxann Sczepanik. You can just search that, easily searchable. And I know you'll post my
Oh,
spelling of my name because it's
yes,
very
I will.
difficult. But then it's also Roxxann Sczepanik at josephchris.net is my email. And then you can reach me by phone also at 281-359-2192.
Mhm. Perfect. And if I remember correctly, that phone number, your cell, is actually on your LinkedIn in your
It
actual
is.
career, right?
It
Okay.
is.
So just in case somebody doesn't know how to look in the, Spotify or the Apple Music or Apple Podcasts, it's also there. So
That's right.
perfect.
And then
Thank
if
you
you
so
just
much.
take the alphabet and shake it up, that's probably how you spell my name and you'll get there in some way.
Perfect. Perfect. Thank you so much, Roxann. Hopefully we can have you again as a guest. Thank you
Yes,
for your time.
it was very enjoyable. Thank you.